Okay, welcome to Ken Sanchez Chambers. I call this March 11th, 2026 zoning meeting of the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners to order. Commissioner Benson will be joining remotely. Announcement of additions and or changes. Director Nick Ham, are there any changes to the agenda or updates on the cases before us today?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. Nicholas Ham, Director of Planning and Development Services. We will proceed as scheduled today, though the Planning Department, we do have suggestions around the specific hearing format and time limits so that we can facilitate the board getting through the business of the day. And thank you, Javier. What we're showing on the overhead right now is a slightly modified hearing format for appeals. It maintains order. What it does is it trims minutes and it does it equitably for each of the speaker times. That's inclusive of staff. So we are all giving up a little bit of time to help the board get through their longer agenda this afternoon. So this is for the first case. And just for context, the appeals format generally totals 40 minutes speaking time. This trims that to 30, and it would be the same for the second item before you today. So this would be 4B. And then for the Coors presentation that we'll hear later this afternoon, it's a plan. So we're going to have there'll be a public input and a staff presentation to get through just the volume of material and to introduce to the board formally the changes that you all have suggested to the planning department to present to you all so that you all can deliberate and decide which of those you feel is most appropriate. 20 minutes would be adequate time for the staff to get through that and then open the floor for public input. And then you all will be able to manage the hearing as you see fit beyond that. So I encourage a motion and a vote to accept that if if it's amenable to the board. Other than that, Madam Chair, I'll stand for questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
I don't remember the exact motion that I made, but I thought it was a continuance of the hearing from last time. I just want to make sure we have time to actually get through those, amendments. That's really where we were at, and we ran out of time. So, my preference would be to just kind of jump back in where we left off, whereas this, what was before us here earlier, actually kind of takes us back to the beginning with another presentation, the comment, all that stuff. And, I think we really need to get to those amendments as quickly as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Ham.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, thank you for that. So the staff presentation picks up where we left off. And our focus today for presenting material to you all is to hone in on those areas of discussion for the board. And then the planning department suggestion is to allow for public comment. That we obviously defer to the board on that specific determination, and having just understanding that this will be the fourth public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. There were 2 hearings before the Planning Commission. It could be said that there's been adequate time for public input, but again, in full deference to the board wisdom there.
Would you like to make a suggestion?
I might say if there's comment that's germane to the proposed amendments, which were published with the agenda, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
To me, that would be new comment, but I think that we've heard, as you said, multiple rounds of comment on this. And the only thing new at this point would be the amendments.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there's a way to test that, so I think we just gotta make a decision whether we want to remove public comment or not. Is there a suggestion for that? Yes, Julie. Oh, no, I'm asking Commission, I guess, if there's a suggestion. Did you have anything?
Madam Chair, if there is a motion to do that, it can be entertained by the board, but it is a continuance, and so, of course, it's at your discretion.
Oh, okay, yes, so it is at my discretion. I don't want to make that decision unless the board feels that we need to. Frank, since this is your area, thank you for that. Vice Chair, how do you feel about the public comment time?
Yeah, thank you. I certainly conflicted that, but I agree with Commissioner Williams. We've heard this ad nauseum to a certain extent. We have we have heard a lot of public comments about, this matter and move towards it. I'm always generally in favor of
We know.
hearing for the public, but at the same time, at some point in time, we gotta just go forward and.
Okay, thank you. I will move to accept the format that has been presented to us by our planning commission. Can I have a second?
Second.
And, please call the vote. Is there a question?
Madam Chair, to clarify, is that with or without public comment?
As you've presented it.
With public comment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you said you wanted to.
Well, no, I didn't say when.
I can make that decision when we get there. Okay, and we only have 3 speakers. Okay, that solves the problem. Thank you.
That does help, yeah.
Okay, that solves the problem. Yes, we'll move forward as, thank you. Thank you for that, Julie. Okay, and now our item, do we move directly into?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Madam Chair, we have a
Madam Chair,
motion,
if we can,
second.
Oh, roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, and if I may, Julie, is Commissioner Benson on the line?
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barba Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk. Okay, we move forward to approve the February 10th, 2026 zoning meeting minutes. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Commissioner Barba Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes, thank you. We have minutes. Item number 4, we will proceed with the quasi-judicial appeals process restricted to the parameters set for staff and appellant presentations. This process does not permit public comment, and new evidence is permitted by a majority vote of the board. Before we start with the staff presentations, Madam Clerk, please swear in all those giving testimony today.
All those providing testimony, please stand up. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give at this hearing shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So the next item on the agenda is appeals, and the first appeal. Okay, we've proposed the time limits. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'm Maggie Gould. I'm our zoning administrator. This is COA 2026-001, also attached to BA 2025-007 and ZA 2025-0019. John and Joanna DeZula appeal the Board of Adjustment's decision to uphold the zoning administrator's approval of a conditional use to allow an accessory structure over 600 square feet for a 1,200 square foot garage on Lot 4, Tract C of the Shajelski Edition, located at 2526 Viola Drive Southwest, zoned R1 and containing approximately 0.87 acres. This request was originally submitted by Conrad DeZula, who is the property owner. This case, and I don't know if I can get there we go, beautiful. Great, okay. So this is the subject property. This is 2526 Viola Drive Southwest. Again, it's zoned R1. In our R1 zone, accessory structures are limited to 600 square feet unless there is a conditional use granted. So here is the subject site. This is the proposed garage, which would sit right over here. This was heard at the September 10th, 2025 ZA hearing. And again, the conditional use criteria are that the site is large enough for the proposed use, so there will be room for parking, loading, anything else that's needed. The site for the proposed use can be developed in such a manner that there are not undue traffic or hazards. So again, it's going to fit in with the neighborhood. And finally, the proposed use will have no adverse effect on the neighborhood or seriously conflict with the character of the area. So again, these are all about conditional uses being something we expect to see, but we want that extra review to make sure that they fit, especially since we have varying lot sizes in the R1 zone. So the ZA found that the subject site was large enough to accommodate the proposed building, that it met the setback requirements, that it had been sited away from the adjacent residents to the north. There were other accessory structures in the area, and that the site would be used for personal use, not for business. And so the appellant had a concern that this would be used as a commercial building. Both the applicant and his tenant stated that that was not the case. And again, it, in the ZA's opinion, met the conditional use requirements. It was appealed to the County Planning Commission, acting in their role as the Board of Adjustment, for our September 3rd hearing. Again, at the time, the appellant's concerns were that the structure would be used for commercial business and the size of the structure. And so the Board of Adjustment is the CPC acting to hear and determine appeals from rulings, decisions, and determinations of the zoning administrator, granting or denying applications for variances or conditional uses. And again, in this case, the BA found that the ZA had not erred, and they affirmed the decision denying the appeal. The appellant then appealed to your body using the same concerns, the use of the structure for a commercial business and the size of the structure. And so this was an appeal that is filed timely, so we took it in. And at this point, as the BCC, you may choose to deny the appeal and affirm the BOA's decision. You may grant the appeal and overturn the BOA decision, and you may change or modify these decisions or make any additional terminations as you see fit. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. Any questions from commission?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if this is appropriate time to say this, but I cannot participate in this deliberation. One of the parties is a former client of mine. I've represented him numerous times over the years, and so I will not be participating.
Okay, thank you. I believe if there's not any question, we move to the appeals presentation. Thank you. Now hear from the appellant. We'll have 8 minutes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the staff is not aware of the appellant being present. If you wouldn't mind just helping us call out to the audience to see if anyone is here. Their name is John DeZula.
Hello, if Mr. John DeZula is present, please come forward. Or if you are online, raise your hand. Oh, she's going to check the call.
We're going to check outside, and while that's occurring, in consultation with Ms. Joe from County Legal, the board does have the ability to move forward with today's proceeding in the absence of the appellant. Their argument is included as part of their appeal application, and this is an appeal on the record, so the evidence that you all would be considering is available to the board. The staff is ready to proceed however you see fit.
Thank you. We'll wait till she returns to see if they are available. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Maggie Gould. So I don't believe we see Mr. John DeZola present. Okay, we are going to proceed in his absence. So I ask if he is not going to appeal, then we would also now go to the opponent. Okay, the opponent is available. The original applicant. Are you, okay, here comes the original applicants. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Conrad DeZula, and I own the property to which we want to put that building on there. Nothing has changed since the original permit approval. The intended use is going to remain the same. I have no new information as far as that's concerned. I mean, I know this may be irrelevant to the task, but the appellant, the person opposing, is my father. We had a falling out years ago, and he was just appealing no matter what I did on that property just to cost me money. That was the only driving factor, and time, to get stuff done. The property was dormant for many years, and as soon as I started remodeling and doing stuff, he just started calling the county because you guys have the jurisdiction on the matter. Not just this, but a bunch of other stuff. I mean, from weeds to construction to sewer line repairs. I mean, anything we tried to do, he called and made sure you guys were aware of it. So it was just like a spiteful thing. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, so I'm
Do you
sorry.
want-
Do you have any questions for me?
Does anyone have any questions for the original applicant?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing and best of luck moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we will now move to, and there's no appellant present for rebuttal, which would have had 4 minutes. We will move to staff time, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I would just reiterate that I believe that this clearly meets the conditional use criteria and that the BOA did not affirm, or did not err in affirming the ZA decision on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any board questions and discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
I'd move to deny the appeal.
I will second that. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll? Oh, I guess any discussion? No. Okay, yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barbabaca,
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa,
Yes.
and I believe Vice Chair Frank Baca abstained, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, for the record.
Thank you. So we have that. Passes. We will move on to item B, Planning and Development Services on the yes. Staff, please present. And I guess, Julie, am I supposed to read this quasi-judicial?
Madam Chair, we can proceed, and then before we move on to public hearing, then you can place that into the record. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Good afternoon, Chair Barboa and Commissioners. I'm Carrie Barkhurst, a lead planner with Planning and Development Services. This is agenda item 4B, and it's regarding CSU 2025-12. At the December 3rd, 2025 County Planning Commission hearing, the CPC unanimously recommended approval of the request for a special use permit for an RV park of overnight campground for tracks A, B, C, and D, Crawford and Haddow Development LLC subdivision, located at 185, 189, 193, and 197 Old Posse Trail Northwest. It's zoned A1 and contains 6.84 acres. This use is required to obtain a special use permit regardless of the location. This property was used as a contractor's yard for a fencing business for over 30 years, but has remained vacant since that use ended in 2005. The surrounding properties include a residential dwelling to the west and a contractor's yard, another contractor's yard to the north, the Sheriff's Posse Arena and Clubhouse to the east, and a mobile home development to the south. As far back as the 1970s, this area has exhibited a mix of uses and development patterns and lot sizes. This request proposes an RV park with 76 campsites, an office, a dog park, and a playground. This case had 3 hearings, which were needed to allow the applicant time to further clarify their application and site plan to coordinate with other property owners who use Old Posse Trail. Key discussions at the hearing focused on the compatibility of this use with the rural area as designated in the comprehensive plan and North Valley area plan policies. Additionally, discussion revolved around ensuring the improvements made in the floodplain were appropriately designed, and also that the shared maintenance of the Old Posse Trail was well coordinated. The CPC unanimously voted approval of the special use permit for RV park and overnight campground. Their findings document consistency with the comprehensive plan, rural area, and the North Valley area plan goals and policies, as well as Resolution 11686. The CPC recognized the importance of balancing the character in this rural area with small-scale economic development. The request stabilizes land use for the property, which has a history of non-residential uses and is surrounded by other non-residential uses. Finally, the CPC found that the proposed land use was consistent with the environmental limitations and avoiding extensive urbanization in the floodplain and valley areas. For these reasons, the Planning Department continues to recommend approval of the request. With that background, I'll introduce the appeal case. The appellants are Trent and Trishelle Montano. Let me go back to this. Who are the owners of this property just abutting and to the west of the property. Mr. Pat Hauser, president of the Maria Dyers Neighborhood Association north of this property, and Joe Velarde, who represents the Sheriff's Posse Arena, which is to the east of this property. Their appeal is made on the basis of, one, an error was made in applying adopted plans, policies, and ordinances in arriving at the decision, and two, the decision was arbitrary, capricious, or a manifest abuse of discretion. Firstly, the appellants allege the CPC erred in not addressing or deciding the criteria set out in, can I have just another second? Set out in 18A and Resolution 11686. They allege significant conflict with comprehensive plan and other policies, and some of the conflict was cited in the CPC record through public comments. And secondly, there were errors in the process, I believe regarding notification.
Thank you.
And finally, in conclusion, they've invoked the 20% rule, which requires a supermajority of votes to uphold the CPC's decision of approval. With that, I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. I believe we will move on to the appellant, the original applicant. Yes, please approach. You will have 8 minutes as the original applicant.
Madam Chair, just for clarity on the record, the appellant is up for 8 minutes with the original applicant to follow.
Okay. So the appellant will have.
Good afternoon, Chair Barboa and attending commissioners. My name is Pat Hauser, president of the nearby Maria Dyers Neighborhood Association, in good standing with the Bernalillo County Planning and Development Services. As president and property owner, we ask that this request for a 76-unit RV park and campground, CSU 2025-0012, be denied. We as long-term residents and property owners will be directly affected by an approval of this permit. It would seem that reasonable minds would find that this request does not meet the goal of maintaining the separate identity of our rural area versus the urbanization of such an enterprise as being out of character and incompatible with the traditional North Valley, as most New Mexicans would clearly understand. The inappropriateness of such an enterprise, it would seem that previous short-sighted decisions by elected officials have long-term impacts on communities such as ours that have historically been marginalized here in the far North Valley. A precedent that should not be ignored and require more scrutiny is the indiscriminate approval of special use permits and conditional use permits of mixed use in our predominant A1 and R1 zone district that have forever impacts on being, for all practical purposes, a zone change. A classic and life-altering approval was for the sit, now means sit, dog kennel located at 10408 2nd Street that was placed between single-family homes utilizing the same border. Just to mention the one, as noted, this approval is to be for 10 years. It would seem once again that reasonable minds would ask of the countless special use permits requests to find expiration dates, how many have been revoked or terminated? Hence my finding that this zone change is a practical consideration, a zone change. Within the past years, there is on record from Bernalillo County that denying such a request has significant merit. This same property has been denied a special use permit in recent years. The basic reason for such a position were outlined as such. The commercial activity in a predominantly residential neighborhood has no neighborhood support. The intent of the Bernalillo County zoning ordinance is not to allow intense commercial activities in an A1 zone, but rather to allow activities that are consistent with the surroundings. There are no RV parks in our immediate area. Balloon View RV Park at 500 Tyler Road on North Edith near Osuna Road. This request fails to meet the criteria. The proposed use will have no adverse effect on the neighborhood or seriously conflict with the character of the area. There are health and welfare concerns of the neighborhood that have not been adequately addressed. The current A1 zoning allows for reasonable use of the property and not a business enterprise that have been denied in the past, such as the Crawford Hadlow request and the previous request for the Old Posse Trail RV Resort. The Hammerhead turnaround does not meet Bernalillo County Fire Code requirements as outlined in previous denials for said property. There are still 2 outstanding inspection of public records requests that have not been fulfilled. One specific is the easement concern and the other regarding information from and between Bernalillo Planning and applicant. There is no public stormwater pollution prevention plans outlined in the ordinance. Conclusion, with the appellants, also known as the Trent Montano Family Bernalillo County Sheriff's Posse, a nonprofit organization, Maria Dyer's Neighborhood Association, myself, the president, have provided credible reasons based on facts supported by comprehensive North Area Plan that reasonable minds would conclude and support the denial of this business enterprise due to the fact that there is no neighborhood support. The published intent of Bernalillo County zoning ordinance is not to allow intense commercial activities in A1 zoning, but rather allow activities that are consistent with the predominantly single-family homes surrounding the area and would seriously conflict with the area of the character of the area. Currently, A1 zoning allows for reasonable use of the property for a subdivision, which was recently done just to the north of us, Vista Sul by Sivage Thomas, a well-planned community. I offer this North Valley Area Plan and focus on the North Valley Area Plan summary, goals and issues on page 5. I've got those here for you. Would like to have those in for your review. This is a North Valley Area Plan and a subset for each one of you.
Thank
Commissioners
you.
and
Can
board
somebody help him get these? Or can you can approach them. Thank you.
And I'll defer to legal on whether a vote needs to take place to accept these into the record.
Legal.
Madam Chair, a vote will be required to accept these into the record for consideration.
Okay. Do you want to continue with to finish your?
No,
Okay.
I thank you for your time and I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. I believe we will
Can I use the last couple minutes?
move into.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
There is about 2 minutes left, and we have another appellant here who would like to use the remainder of the time.
Okay, yes, please.
If I may, thank you, Commissioners. I'm Trent Montano, one of the appellants in this case. Out of respect to your time, we have submitted 18 valid reasons why you should defend us, help us. We're appealing to you to help us in this case. But it's also very important to note, as Mr. Hauser said, in 2007, a zone change request from A1 to R1 zoning was denied. In that instance, they wanted to change this from 4 single-family residences to 5. And the findings of the authorities having jurisdiction on that day was that that was not appropriate use of the land and that the A1 zoning designation must be protected. Now, we're looking at putting in a commercial operation with 76 campsites, quite a long stretch from 5 homes. There's many, many reasons why that's not appropriate, but important that you all know that what they refer to as Old Posse Trail is not a public right-of-way. This is a utility and access easement with an almost 40-year-old agreement in place to allow use of that easement to serve the surrounding properties. They have not come up with a complete plan on how to convert that to a public right-of-way and address all the things such as maintenance and upkeep and liability of this private easement that they plan to use for their commercial endeavors. That is one of many, many reasons. As a next door neighbor, I can tell you I have major issues with the setbacks as well. They've asked for several variances which are just not consistent, even with the special use permit for campground that they want to have. If they would follow those basic requirements, I think this would be a better considered matter before you.
Can you repeat that last part about the better considerations for me, please?
Yeah, I think if the developer had chosen to follow the basic requirements for a special use permit for an overnight campground in A1 zoning, we'd have a much different looking project in front of you. They've asked for variances and tons of leeway to put a more dense development in there and do away with setback requirements that are very important for fire safety, as well as keeping peace with the neighbors, which is really important to me.
Yes.
So,
Thank you for repeating that for me.
yes, of course. Is there any other questions I'm answer?
Okay, thank you. We will move on to opponent, and can you, who is considered the opponent? Is this the sheriff's posse?
Madam Chair, the original applicant is Mac Blackstein,
Okay.
Mark Sands, and William Harris.
And just for will we be hearing from the sheriff's posse as a appellant? Okay, well, we'll hear from them. Thank you. We have 4 minutes. No, you have 10 minutes
I
as
think-
the opponent, sorry.
I think it's 12, Madam Chair.
It is 12, you're correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Lawrence Wells. I'm here representing the applicants, Max Blackstein, Mark Sands, and Ty Harris, who made the application for the special use permit. The standard for the decision by the Planning Commission was whether a different use category would be more advantageous to the community, consistent with county plans. We believe that the Planning Commission made the correct decision, that given all the factors that they looked at in 3 hearings, that it is in fact a good decision for a special use permit. There were 18 grounds of error raised, and a lot of them overlapped or addressed some of the same things. So we addressed all 18 separately in our written reply, but today I'm going to group them together, I think, in a logical organization. First, there were 3 complaints about a refusal to grant a 3rd deferral at the December meeting. This was heard in a substantive manner in October, November, and in December, and a request was made to defer it again. The deferral request was based largely on an application for further records that by Mr. Hauser, who admitted that he'd made a late application for that and he didn't have the materials. Apparently, he still doesn't have the materials. There was no reason offered as to why he didn't make that request much earlier. He attended all the hearings in the case. There were supposedly open items to be addressed, but they didn't say what open items were unaddressed and what wasn't covered properly by the commission in its 3rd hearing. We believe that the refusal to defer again was not an error and it was an appropriate move by the Planning Commission. There are 2 procedural complaints. They complain that it was not a proper quasi-judicial hearing, and they complain that there was alleged bias by the county. The complaint about quasi-judicial hearing was that they claim that they were refused the ability to cross-examine witnesses. If you review the transcripts in this case, there was never a request for cross-examination by anyone, including the 3 appellants. So it cannot properly be said that cross-examination was denied. In fact, it wasn't asked for and it wasn't given. The County Planning Commission has the ability, through New Mexico law, to be somewhat flexible in how it applies the standards of a quasi-judicial hearing. There is no requirement in New Mexico law to offer cross-examination, and the appellants haven't suggested who they would have cross-examined and what evidence they think they would have adduced from a cross-examination in the case. So we don't believe that is error. Concerning bias, they believe that the county is biased toward this application, toward granting it, because the county seeks to compel the paving of Old Posse Trail. One of the conditions of the Planning Commission was that my clients pave Old Posse Trail. In fact, what came up in the case was that the sheriff's posse was supposed to have paved this road 39 years ago, and they didn't. And now my clients have to do it. It's a little ironic that they think that's a cause for bias on the part of the county. There's no evidence in the record of bias. There are two complaints about special use permit standards. They think it should be treated as a zone change, and they think that the SU permit standards as applied are too discretionary. Both of these arguments were addressed over 15 years ago in a case on appeal from the Planning Commission and from your commission in a case called Ricci versus Bernalillo County Board of County Commissioners. In that case, the Court of Appeals said no to both of these propositions. No, an SU permit is not a request for a zone change, and so zone change standards don't apply. The SU permit standards apply. And no, it is not too discretionary to apply the SU standards without using zone change standards. So we believe there's no good grounds for denying, for granting the appeal on that basis. There are two complaints about alleged targeting of the appellants. There was a zoning violation notice issued to the sheriff's posse after, I believe it was the first hearing. I think it's in that hearing when it first came to light, and probably no one was consciously aware of it before, that this road was supposed to have been paved 39 years ago. As a result of that discovery, it seems obvious that the county sent out a zoning inspector to look at that. It wasn't paved, so that's a violation. And about 5 other matters were raised as being zoning violations when the inspector was on site. Ironically, one of them is that they were allowing RV camping on their property without an SU permit, the very thing that my client is here asking for permission to do. We don't believe that is any kind of targeting. That is the application of the law. There was also a zoning violation notice issued to Mr. Hauser. I think it's the same thing. This is an issue between the county and these two parties. It's not an issue my client's involved in, and it's not grounds for granting an appeal. There was a complaint about traffic, and the evidence that the appellants brought forward is a photograph of a very large truck on 2nd Avenue heading north with a line of cars behind it. As all of us know, on any 2-lane road, when you have a slow-moving truck, there will be a line of cars behind it. That isn't evidence of a traffic issue. They offered no specific evidence except for that photograph. Traffic analysis is not a matter for conjecture, speculation, or anecdotal evidence like a photograph. In fact, the Bernalillo County Public Works Department is charged with transportation review, and they reviewed a traffic scoping report. They used the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual in their review, and they determined on the record before you that no further traffic study was required, and they approved the project with no adverse comments. Pardon me. There were 7 points on the core issue, 7 points of appeal, and that is the actual decision to grant the special use permit. Appellants say that the Planning Commission did not address the criteria set out in Section 18 of the zoning ordinance, which is the one that deals with special use permits, and they did not deal with Resolution 11686. That is not correct. The record is replete with discussion about Section 18 and Resolution 11686. There was detailed analysis of this in the staff report. I know it was considered by the Planning Commission. These elements were addressed by the applicant in the applicant's papers that went into the application. The appellants say that granting the special use permit is in significant conflict with the comprehensive plan and other relevant county plans. They didn't say how, and they didn't say why. In fact, it's not. Finding 4 in the notice of decision clearly articulates the reason for granting the special use permit consistent with the comprehensive plan. Finding 5 articulates the consistency with the North Valley Area Plan. Finding 6 articulates consistency with Resolution 11686. In fact, these were given very careful attention, and both staff and the Planning Commission decided it was consistent. The appellants say that the setback variances granted are contrary to state law and the zoning ordinance. They didn't say how it's in violation of state law or the zoning ordinance. Section 18A of the zoning ordinance authorizes the Planning Commission to vary any minimum standard it deems necessary as long as it's consistent with the ordinance and the intent of the ordinance. They decided that these variances made sense. Why? This property is well off 2nd Street. In fact, Old Posse Trail, which you have to drive down to get to this property, pardon me, is on my client's property. They pay the taxes for Old Posse Trail. And Old Posse Trail is the northern part of these 4 lots. In other words, the northern boundary of the property that this will be placed on is quite a distance from where the building and the rest of the development will be, because Old Posse Trail is in there. And so the Planning Commission decided it made sense to grant a variance. In fact, there'll still be about 50 feet between the building that's been approved and where the boundary line is. There are other variances, and they're all consistent with the same thing. They carefully weighed the requests and they granted them. The appellants say that the site plan does not comply with the requirements for an overnight campground under Section 18, but they don't say why. Well, there are conditions in the decision that cover minimum required camping space, landscaping, and Condition 10 says that the site plan, when it's finally approved through the administrative process, must comply with all Bernalillo County ordinances and regulations. That's going to be the compliance, so they're not going to get the site plan final sign-off. The appellants say that the decision was not supported by substantial evidence and there was no sound justification. If one looks at the record, including the testimony that was given, it's absolutely clear that there is plenty of substantial evidence to support the decision, and it was obviously a sound justification for the special use permit under the criteria of Resolution 11686. And finally, the appellant said that there are examples of previous decisions to protect A1 zoning. This is consistent with what Mr. Hauser was saying to you a little earlier. And they say this is a precedent. He's implying that there shouldn't be any special use permits on A1 land. This area has many special use permits. There are special use permits for all kinds of uses, as was discussed in the staff presentation. In fact, precedent indicates that the granting of an SU permit is appropriate in this area as long as it meets the standards that the applicants have satisfied in this case. We believe the appellants have offered no credible evidence in the record or otherwise as to why this application should be denied. We encourage the County Commission to deny the appeal. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much for your time today. Any questions? Okay, we will move. Yes, Vice Chair Baca.
Thank you. I just have one question.
Can you make sure you get your mic?
I just want to make sure I understand the paving issue that you indicated. I know you addressed it, but I just want to make sure I understand that you said that there was a requirement that it be paved some 39 years ago. Is that
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is the status of that now? Just so I understand it.
So because it wasn't paved, and because one of the appellants, Sheriff's Posse, has declined to pave it at any time in the last 39 years, as a condition to the granting of my client's application, the county requires that my clients pave it. And my clients agreed to the condition up to 30 feet beyond where the first entrance into their property comes off of Sheriff's Posse Road Trail. So it will be paved.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand that.
Thank you. We will move to the appellant rebuttal. thank you. We have, you will have 4 minutes to.
Okay.
rebuttal.
Again, Trent Montano, the neighbor. Congratulations, Mr. Wells. You made a great presentation here. I believe this is your profession. You should be good at this. This just further proves my point that this group is just attempting to extract profit from a residential area through commercial business. They continue to demonstrate an adversarial position and clearly have no considerations for the best interests of the North Valley of Bernalillo County. They talk about the road and say that the developer is accepting the financial burden of the road, but not until you question did he come forth with the fact that they only want to pave half of the road to serve their interest at their entrance to the property. There is no guidance anywhere about what happens to the second half of the road that has been maintained by the sheriff's posse, for the last 39 years, free of charge, out of the kindness of their hearts because they want to be good neighbors. That half of the road with the proposal that's in front of you today would be left unsupervised. Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to accept responsibility and liability for that road? It's a very important factor that we must consider. He talks about how the sheriff's posse 39 years ago should have paid to pave that road. There's no documents to support this, but there is, in fact, documents recorded with Bernalillo County. There is more current plats recorded with Bernalillo County. The most recent I'm aware of in 2007, when the Crawford-Haddo development was approved and divided into 4 A1 lots, and it states specifically that the responsibility for development of that road belongs to the 4 properties of the Crawford-Haddo development. So in my mind, as a private citizen, I'm not a lawyer, but as a private citizen that's trying to do my best here before you all and asking for your help, in my mind, that recording in 2007 should clearly trump some hearsay from almost 40 years ago. And that they keep bringing that up, and it has nothing to do with what's going on today. They are trying to set up a commercial business on a, and I'm doing air quotes, a temporary special use permit for 10 years. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. I don't know where you all are going to be. I know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be the neighbor of a special use permit and have issues. It's clearly a zoning change. They're clearly trying to set up a commercial business. It doesn't fit on this private access easement. It's not a big highway. It's not a right-of-way. We don't have customers lining up wanting to do business. This is a semi-rural area of Bernalillo County, and I hope that we can all do our part to protect that. I want to appeal to Mr. Blackston. I've appealed to you all to please help us and protect us. Mr. Blackston is my neighbor, and he seems to be a very nice guy. And I want to appeal to you and your group, sir, to please be good stewards of the land of the North Valley of Bernalillo County, New Mexico. There's not much land left. We're holding on to a lifestyle, and there is clear guidance in place to protect this. And I'm begging you all, please, to review the documents. I hope you'll accept this stuff that was presented to you by Mr. Hauser and look at it and consider it, because we're not making this up. We're following the plans that are out there and trying to preserve our lifestyle. So I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your heart and concerns with us. We will move to staff for a 2-minute present.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to just provide a kind of response to some of the points brought up in the hearing, the first being the road. There was notice of decision for the conditional use approval for the Sheriff's Posse Arena that they paved the road. That was back in the 80s, and it never happened. And when this request came in, there was not the original requirement to pave the road. It wasn't until the hearing kind of illuminated how much traffic was already using the road, and that the road maintenance wouldn't be amicable. So they required the first half of the road to be paved. and there's not typically a requirement to dedicate it as right-of-way. I will mention that the Sheriff's Posse Arena is working with the Planning Department to come in for a special use permit for an RV park to allow the uses that have been happening on their property as well. I'll speak to the setbacks, and staff acknowledges that the site plan allows a 6-foot setback along the east and the north sides, a 20-foot setback on the south side, and a 0-foot setback along the Sheriff's Posse on the west side, which is allowed by Section 18B32. A smaller setback can be approved if there's a solid wall. And so the applicant's proposing to build a block wall along the property line with the Montano family. And then in conclusion, if the BCC chooses to approve the special use permit, staff has provided revised findings that reflect the new property ownership. Since the CPC hearing, the agents are now the property owners. And staff has also prepared denial findings if that's the discretion of the BCC.
Thank you. Okay, so board questions and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Barbara
Madam
Baca.
Chair, Ms. Barkhurst, so the two questions I had, I think you addressed them. The question that the appellant brought up about the road, so that is going to be included in this final site plan, or the requirement of it being paved?
Yes, the applicant did provide a revised site plan showing the first half of the road approximately to be paved to their driveway and 30 feet beyond the driveway, so they've agreed to that.
And then the second one was on the setbacks. Can you describe that again? Because that was what I also heard from the appellant initially, that
Could
the
you
setbacks
change
were a problem.
The
And so-
view to
yeah.
the, this overhead. Okay, so this is the landscape plan. They have these depressed landscape islands, and then along the east side, so this is the Montano family owns this property. So there is a 6-foot landscape buffer along that property edge. There's a 20-foot landscape buffer along the edge that borders the mobile home community. And then along this portion that abuts the Sheriff's Posse Arena, there is a 0-foot setback. Along the north is a 6-foot landscape setback.
Madam Chair, and so on the right-hand side of the picture there, that's where the wall is going to be required on the 0 setback?
Yes, right along this, this is the western side of the property, will be a new 6-foot block wall. And then there's, I believe, a wood fence that is existing along the remainder of the west side, along the south side. And then there is a metal fence installed, I'm presuming by Sheriff's Posse Arena, along the east side.
Thank you. I did, we're watching for Commissioner Benson in case. I did have a question. So you said on the east side, I believe, which borders with Mr. Montano's property, that I heard you mention that there is both a requirement of a either 6-foot setback or a block wall, and that the owner has decided to, has asked to do a block wall, and so is that easement, or that, not easement, the setback, how big is that setback on this
Yes, Madam Chair.
with the block wall?
So the use performance standards of a campground state a 20-foot setback or a 6-foot solid wall, and it doesn't even mention any numeric number of what that smaller setback is, but it just says a smaller setback may be approved if there's a solid wall. And so that is what the applicant proposed, and the CPC went.
So right now, is there any setback between the wall and what will be used as?
Yes, so it's on the east side, it's a 6-foot landscape setback next to the Montano family.
Plus a 6-foot wall.
However, on the west side, this is not a residential use, but if the Sheriff's Posse Arena went away in the future and it was developed as a residential use, they would be required to put in a landscape buffer of at least 6 feet along this wall as well, if that future land use change happened, if it went away from its current use.
Okay. And then for the current, right now, there's both a 6-foot wall and a 6-foot setback on the east border.
Yes, Madam Chair, correct.
Thank you. I keep asking for that.
Can I just clarify, she's got east and west reversed. My property line is the west of their
West.
project.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I must have it reversed. So west.
So it's clear on the record.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So on the property that is, okay, I think I understand that we, as a commission, can decide to increase that setback to support residents if we decided to?
Yes, Madam Chair, we can work on some revised conditions if you would like to propose that.
I would like to propose that, in addition to the 6-foot wall and the 6-foot setback, that we add an additional 3 feet of setback from making it a total of 9 feet setback for the part that is aligned with, on the west side, but specifically the part that's aligned with the residential property, because I think there is a bit of non-residential that doesn't include a solid wall, if I'm seeing this correctly.
And you said 9 feet?
Yeah, I don't know, like if the maximum is 20, maybe we should go 10 at least, plus a solid wall. I'm looking to my colleagues.
I still have some questions.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry that I didn't see you.
No, it's okay.
Okay, I guess I want to just throw that into the discussion, and we can move into, that I would suggest a 10-foot setback in addition to the 6-foot solid wall. Go ahead, Commissioner Olivas, question.
And then it looks like
Okay,
Commissioner
great.
Benson also. So on the road issue, they're committed to paving 30 feet further than their driveway.
Can you
Yes.
show us that on here too?
Okay, Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, this site plan, it's not very clear on my screen, but it does include kind of this gray area of paving the road, and it's approximately half of that easement, so it's 30 feet beyond this driveway. This line drawing shows it a little bit better, the paved road right here to be just beyond their site driveway.
Now, so on the rest of that going past there, I guess I thought that the driveway was on the, I guess it would be the east side of this. So there, what is this other stuff here? There's picnic benches. I guess all that stuff is inside the property. So the traffic accessing this property wouldn't have any reason to go any further than that. And this little L in the corner here, what is the purpose of that? Yeah.
Yes, this is a fire turnaround. And so as required by Public Works, it would only be the first half of the road to their driveway would be required to be paved. And then the site circulation would allow them to come in and out of that driveway.
So if their fire access is in that corner, then shouldn't that be paved all the way to the corner?
Madam Chair,
I
yeah.
maybe that's not a fair question to ask you, but I'm just thinking, I thought that was the driveway originally. So I thought they were paving 30 feet further than their property line, which, you know, to me would be really generous to the neighborhood, or to, you know, to the surrounding property owners to say, we're gonna pave more than we really have to. But I think what you're actually showing there is that they're just paving to that, and then their fire access would not be paved.
Or any of that point in between where the old Posse Trail is, right? We're just saying the
Yes.
part you have graded now is the only part that has any plans to be paved right now.
At the
Beyond
moment,
that, there is
yes.
no current plans to pave.
Yes, and part of the thinking for this is that this particular use, Ms. Julie Luna testified at the CPC hearing process that it is a very low traffic generating and traffic demand use. That's why the road was not required to be paved in the initial application. It wasn't until we heard how active the Sheriff's Posse Arena is that they mentioned bumper-to-bumper traffic and events every weekend and heavy vehicles. And so it was at that point that I think the county realized how much use this road already has. And so that's why this half of the road seemed within the nexus of what is reasonable to require of this applicant.
Madam Chair,
Yes, and I think that,
if I may, just real quick, and
Yes, go
then,
ahead.
and then I'm fine with that. I guess I understand that too, and that would be kind of I see both sides, and I wish there was a way to bring everybody together, and because if their fire turnaround is at the far end of the property, makes sense to me that we should have that paved all the way. But at the same time, the property owner has no real use, although maybe in an emergency, for that additional paving. And if there was a requirement of the last special use that they pave all of this, then, you know, in theory, this property owner is already doing more than perhaps they otherwise would have or should have.
and
Sorry,
I
Director.
guess I just wanted to add to that piece, and, I guess, I'll let Nick speak.
Madam Chair, I certainly don't want to go in front of you if you had something you wanted to say.
No, I'll remember.
Understood, okay.
Thank you.
The planning department's understanding is that the turnaround area that Commissioner Olivas is speaking to also benefits the sheriff posse. So that box towards the end, it serves the sheriff posse property as well for fire turnaround purposes. So I just wanted to help
Thank you.
lend some
I
light
think
there.
that was to my question that I've heard this evening that both at one point, and I think I heard her affirm that there was actual documentation about the requirement for the sheriff's posse in their special use permit to pave the road. They have not paved the road, but have been maintaining it, is what I heard, through grading and watering or keeping the dust down, I guess. But they have not paved it as originally committed. I believe I heard that clearly and affirmed. And then in addition, I heard, and I would like affirmation of that in the more recent is the part we're talking about for the applicant, for the property owner. It sounded like Mr. Montaño was saying that there was a time when they had in one of their a previous time that they had in their documents that they were supposed to pave the road. But is it just this gray area that we're talking about? Was there ever a requirement previous to this of the owner to pave the road?
Madam Chair, the document that Mr. Montaño mentioned today, we are not familiar with that specific document. What we are aware of is that when the county approved in the 80s the conditional use permit for the sheriff's posse, there was a condition of approval associated with that conditional use permit that the entire length be paved. Unfortunately, that had not occurred, and I believe that the county bears some responsibility for that, and I will just be very frank on that point. So
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I didn't quite finish all my questions. So the other question here would be.
Commissioner Benson had his hand up too, so after you.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
didn't
Commissioner
finish.
Benson.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
So the landscaping here, you know, in these buffers, I think you had one that showed, is there anything with more like?
The other one with the
what else
buffers.
is gonna go in there?
The other visual that has the sort of landscaping there.
So currently, what is here is just a dirt lot?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so there's nothing here now, and this will add, you know, it looks like a small amount of trees. Is that correct? Are these trees, are these shrubs, or if you could scroll
Yes,
down
Madam
just a little
Chair,
bit?
Commissioner
Can you explain?
Olivas, it is desert willow shrubs, turpentine bush, so a variety of plant species will be planted along all of these landscaped areas that are kind of shown and hatched.
Okay. And then one last question I had, you mentioned that if I guess it's the sheriff's posse property ever changed zoning, or some property there changed zoning, who would have to do a 6-foot buffer? This property or that property owner?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, the requirement for the landscape buffering is the burden of the non-residential property. And the zoning code requires at the interface of residential and non-residential, that the non-residential property provide the required fencing and landscaping.
So this owner would have to move their fence back and redo their landscaping if the neighbor changes their use.
Not changes zoning, it's if they're a resident, if somehow the sheriff's posse went away and a residential unit was built there.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Rivas, it is if it's developed as residential, that performance requirement would apply, and the fence could remain along the property line. The landscaping would be required interior to the fence on the non-residential side.
Okay, I guess I kind of don't understand why we wouldn't just require that now versus waiting for something to change. But I guess I understand you're talking about the use, but anyway, that's all my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, yes. So we.
Commissioner Benson.
Oh, yes,
Sorry,
thank
I
you,
interrupted.
Commissioner Benson. It's hard not to see the hand thing. We need multiple screens now. Just kidding.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Benson, I am sorry to take so long to get to you.
No apologies. Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the questions I have, just in the spirit of the North Valley, this non-residential lot, and I guess this is a question for the county staff, is what's the likelihood of that lot turning into kind of residential, where you have like RVs moving in and they just park and stay? And as a follow-up question, is there anything, are there any guidelines or limits to kind of limit that and make sure that the intended use is like when I think RV overnight park, I mean, RVs don't have to be in and out in one night, but we're aware of other RV parks where the RVs stay and they're kind of permanent homes.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, as the
Yes.
conditions of approval currently stand, there is not a time limitation associated with how long a recreational vehicle could occupy a space. I would argue that it is within the discretion of the board to apply one if you all see fit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see, it looks like the applicant has covered all their bases, and they've followed all the rules and checked all the boxes, and to me, it looks like this is a reasonable application that has already been approved. The neighbors, I understand that. I don't know that how I would feel if I was on that same street. But even though they have applied for all the rules, I think that's kind of that's my biggest concern when I see this, is those are a lot of spaces there that if there wasn't turnover, I think I'd like to consider, and I'd like feedback from Mr. Ham on what's an appropriate time frame, reasonable for travelers who are coming and going. There's long events like the Balloon Fiesta or whatever, but that would be kind of one of the accommodations I'd like to make, is make sure this doesn't turn into a kind of a permanent trailer park.
Commissioner, yes, Nick Ham.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, if amenable to the board, I think it may be prudent to hear from the applicant about what they would expect their clientele essentially to be, how long they'd be intending to visit. And that might help inform the board about picking a timeline that we could then incorporate into a condition of approval.
Yes, I am willing to hear from the applicant, but I also want to pose a question is, I guess if you're a business, and maybe I'm taking Commissioner Benson's, if you're a business and I guess I don't understand what matters if you have people booked in the space 365 days a year, but that they're moving in and out, or if somebody decides to pay it 365 days a year to stay there. I guess I don't truly understand the difference. But, so I don't know if that makes, but yes, let's hear from,
I'm Mac Blackston. I think the rules would be fair, just like the KOA campground in Bernalillo, the same campground in KOA off of Tramway and I-40 and Balloon View Campground. I think if we're going to be limited to a number of days, then that's not really fair. I think we all need to have the same advantage.
okay, thank you for that answer. Any other questions, consideration, any follow-up with that, Commissioner Benson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I do have a follow-up. I've stayed in many RV parks with my family, and so they're great, and it's a great way to see the country, and it'd be a great way to attract people here. But and I appreciate the the fairness concern on making sure we're doing like to like. I don't know what the other standards are for like the KOA campground in Bernalillo or any others. However, I do know of some kind of trailer parks in my district that RV parks that are labeled as overnight campgrounds that clearly are not. And so, yeah, that's my only hesitation. Otherwise, given the discussion of the other commissioners, I think their observations and concerns are valid, but that's just my one concern. So, Mr. Ham, I don't know if you have any, if there are any standards like 30 days or 60 days. I don't know what a good overnight campground limit would be where it doesn't turn into a permanent residential ground with a bunch of residents living in a little small space.
Mr. Nick Camp, do you have anything to offer?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson.
I have one more comment regarding that.
Okay, we will hear quickly from you.
So another comment towards that is there are traveling nurses that come to UNM and to other hospitals, and they need a place to stay. So as far as kicking them out after 5 or 6 weeks or having them move over a space to reset their time, I don't think that's fair to them. This is going to be a top-notch RV park. It's not going to be basically a work camp. This is going to be for tourism, Balloon Fiesta, Sandia Casino. These are going to be traveling people, and they're going to want it to be nice professionals, like I mentioned with the traveling nurses and other professions that travel in here. Air traffic controllers, they travel to the area and they stay for a number of time. Contractors for Air Force Base and other things like that. So consider that recommendation.
Thank you for that addition. Mr. Nick Ham, did you have anything else to?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, this is from the KOA's website. The only thing that they indicate is that stays longer than 28 days require you to contact them to make a reservation. I'm not aware of a specific provision that the county applies there. With regard to Commissioner Benson's comment about some of the other facilities in his district, there was a period in time where the county allowed a use called a trailer court, which at the time of approval, it allowed recreational vehicles to be used in a permanent fashion. That is a different use category than what is being considered today. This is the contemporary version of RV camping in a space that's designed for that, in a setting that's designed for that. So I'm sorry I can't be of great assistance there, but we can incorporate a limit.
I want to remind our board that we are in a tight time crunch with the next piece. So if we have things to suggest for approval, I will give Mr. Montaño a 1 minute to tell us what you want to say.
Thank you. I do appreciate your consideration, Madam Chair. With regards to the responsibility for the road, I want to point out Mr. Ham conveniently not being aware of this recorded plat, public record in 2007, speaks to the bias that we've been fighting from the beginning. We have documents, public records showing that the responsibility for the road clearly transferred to the Crawford-Haddo development in 2007, the 4 lots on Old Posse Trail. For your information, Old Posse Trail did not exist before 2007. It would never had a name. It clearly states in a public record that Mr. Blackstone is responsible for the entirety of that road. And for Mr. Ham to conveniently not know about that speaks to my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, quickly, is there any things we want? Yes, oh, sorry.
No. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, it's more of a comment, but also sort of a question, since I've been on the commission, is, these are very difficult issues when you deal with tenants, neighbors, and we struggle with, and we're gonna have one a little bit later as well. These are difficult issues for the community, and I totally get it. And my comment is with actually in regards to this and the previous matter where it involved family members. And I guess my comment, I wish we had a mediation process, and my question is, do we have a mediation process? When you have neighbors that seem to be very reasonable people, and you have some give and take, and you have some discussion, you have people that, could possibly arrive at a conclusion. And I don't know if, again, I haven't been around enough to know if that's something that's institutionalized here. I can tell you as an attorney, it is absolutely institutionalized, and I think something like 94, 95, 93% of the cases these days get referred to mediation and get settled that way. So anyway, that's just a thought, and I would like to just know if we have a process for that to refer people to mediation.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Baca, not as part of the county zoning enforcement process. That is not a mandatory requirement.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
The two very key points that I heard from the appellant was the road and the paving of the road, as well as the setback on that west side, is it? Right, okay. So I wanted to, I'm hoping that we can narrow into our amendments of this and move those two things forward. And my question is, can the property owner be, as part of the site plan, required to pave the full length of their property of Old Posse Trail? And then the sheriff's posse will have to take that up when they do their future SU1 zoning further up. I find it odd that we just end, the proposal is just to end at the driveway. So that's one option, I think, for the benefit of coming to an agreement. Mr. Ham, I don't know if it's a question to you, but.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Baca, the full length of the applicant's property leads to the sheriff posse property. So it would pave the entire length up to the sheriff posse property.
Yeah, I don't know if we could bring that up again, but it's not,
okay.
yeah, it goes
I thought it
all
was
the way
further.
up. No, it's right there up to the, and I believe that we have, I think both properties at this point have been accused of being responsible for that property. And I think as of right now, we are at least covering the residents up to all of where they're in front of the resident's property. Is that true? The requirement right now is that the paved road in front of the entire resident's property will be paved?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Boa, the paving requirement now would be it passes the Montano family property and goes 30 feet beyond the entry point to the applicant's property.
Thank you. I would like to suggest that we increase that setback on the side that is adjacent to the resident's property to a 10 feet setback in addition to their current block wall. So I understand, yes. I'd like to move that. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Barbaca, seconds. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I believe that we will go for a vote. I also move to deny the appeal and uphold the CPC decision
As amended.
as amended. Can I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbara Baca. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Or if there's discussion, no. Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca,
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a ruling. Thank you for everybody attending today. Okay, we will now move on to our next item. Planning and Development Services for Coors Road.
Madam Chair, I'm one of the previous cases, and I would like to address the issue that it arises.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, this
Yes.
is a quasi judicial
I'm
procedure.
appellant, my name is John DeZula, and I'm appellant in the case.
I'm
There was-
sorry, sir, we already heard on your case today and we moved forward.
Not notified that the case was moved from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 o'clock. No notification was sent to me. And that's why I'm here at 3 o'clock, and actually the case was heard after before.
Thank you, Mr. DeZula. I'm sorry, we have solved that case today. We can follow up and see if you have any rights for a further appeal.
Sorry for the brief.
Thank you, Mr. DeZula. We will follow up to see if you have any rights for any further appeal. Okay. Southwest Area Command. And for this procedure, sorry, I have multiple paperwork in front of me.
Yeah, as soon as Adobe finishes updating. Oh, for crying out loud.
Is this where I read in the quasi?
Let me see if I can.
Madam Chair, just for clarity of the record, go ahead and read in the quasi judicial for the appeals, and then we will move to the public hearing.
Okay, for the record, I will read in the quasi judicial for the appeals. This is a quasi judicial proceeding. The commissioner is to act as judges of particular facts concerning the parties before it, applying existing law to the facts. The commission is to base its decision. Can you please mute that mic? The commission is to base its decision only on the facts presented by the parties and not on any facts supposed by it that may exist outside the proceedings. The commission is to act with impartiality towards each party, applying the law to the facts without favoritism or bias or the mere desirability of given results. Okay, I believe we will start with staff. Okay, for a reminder, we will have, for this case, we will have staff presentation for 20 minutes. We will have public comment for 1 minute each person that has signed up already for public comment. And then we will have staff closing comments, board questions and discussion, and we will take action. Manager Lopez and Planner Savaca.
And for staff, I just want to reaffirm when the clerk swore in everybody giving testimony, that also included the public hearing participants.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Mino Savoca. I am a senior planner with Bernalillo County, Planning and Development Services. Just recapping where we were 4 weeks ago, we have 2 items before you. An amendment to the Southwest Area Plan and the South Coors Plan. Just to run through really quickly, the amendment establishes 3 new neighborhood scale activity centers. These are a lower scale activity center in addition to the already existing community activity center at Las Estancias, which is a larger commercial regional scale activity center, to bring the plan in accordance with the proposed sector plan. The sector plan recognizes the existing commercial corridor along Coors from Bridge to Gun Club, establishing this is a commercial corridor with mixed uses, proposes zoning that builds on the existing C1 county zone and brings in some additional uses, adds some design standards. And I just kind of want to jump past that and get right into what we're proposing to change. Elvira.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Barbeau, Commissioners. Elvira Lopez, Planning Manager, Bernalillo County Planning Department. As Commissioner Olivas has pointed out, today's focus of the presentation is to continue the discussion from the last hearing where we have already presented in the past several hearings the content of the plan, and now we're honing in on particular topics and themes, and those are listed here. So this presentation is going to present proposed zoning map modifications. Some have come from the public, as well as proposed zoning and design modifications, primarily those that are being contemplated by the Board of County Commissioners. These will deal with general design standards as well as looking at regulatory language regarding housing options and building height options, and then we'll summarize those for you. Just to say a couple of important dynamics here. You'll see this red line document to the right. The intention is not to read through that. It's just to remember to report to you that we have heeded the request that we meet with commissioners, understand their proposed contemplated modifications, that we report on that so that not only that all the commissioners can enter the meeting prepared to understand what those proposals are, but as well as the public. So we have uploaded these in your reports as well as on our project website so that the public can also follow along. We have color-coded the proposals by commissioner, so that's what all those colors are for. And then secondly, for this presentation, we have also starred the content in this presentation just to put a placeholder in our minds that those contents, proposed modifications to the zoning, have not yet been introduced into staff recommended findings and conditions. Those are topics that are going to be discussed and deliberated on today and would need final action and decision by the commission.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mino again to go over some of the more general zoning modifications.
Okay, thank you. As presented in the 2025 draft, the May 2025 draft, everything here is kind of in relation to that published draft. We have received a number of requests from property owners to change how the plan affects their property, whether they want to remain in the plan but not be eligible for the zoning, whether they want to be included in those activity centers, or whether they want to be removed from the plan entirely. So we do have this new graphic that shows all of the requests as of the February meeting. We do have a few additional proposed changes. This one is already in the staff proposed findings and conditions. This is the Blake Activity Center. And so the Blake Activity Center as proposed in the May draft is this orange area. We've already received requests from properties, this one to the west and the Garcia Farm property to the northeast, to be removed from the plan area. We are also recommending removing the school campuses. This is Navajo Elementary and South Valley Academy on the southeast corner of Blake and Coors, largely to respect the wishes of the Blake Neighborhood Activity, Blake Road Neighborhood Association, apologies. They had concerns about the commercial zoning encroaching into the neighborhood, and so these are schools under state jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction over them anyways, so there's no real issue with removing them from the plan boundary. They will continue to operate as they do. So the Blake Activity Center would be significantly reduced to this sort of green area. Since the publication of the staff report that you all reviewed, we did receive 2 more requests from property owners on Arenal to be removed from the plan boundary. These are agricultural use properties. Staff supports removal from the plan, but because these are new, these were not reported in the staff report, there is the star here, so the commission would have to recommend that as a change and a modification to the plan. And summarizing all those changes, on the left you see the plan as it was proposed in the May draft. Taking into account all of those changes, we now have the new draft on the right-hand side that shows that sort of slimming down. You'll see Tom Tenorio Park is no longer in the plan. The Stinson Tower Neighborhood Association is in the plan but not eligible. And then, of course, that Blake Neighborhood Activity Center is substantially reduced. Okay, so let's move on to some of the other considerations proposed by commissioners. One regards contractors' yards. We recognize that the construction industry is very important to the South Valley. We certainly want to promote that. The May 2025 draft did include contractor's yard as a conditional use in the corridor zone with a number of limitations as far as sizes and intensity. This is a very minor modification. There's a subcategory of contractor's yard called contractor's equipment storage. It's implied that it's allowed anywhere a contractor's yard is, but we want to make that explicit. Also list that as a conditional use following the same regulations. Of course, we've discussed contractor's yard specifically in previous hearings. There have been some additional modifications such as allowing exterior storage of materials and equipment, but this is a very minor change just to add that subcategory. Also, at the request of one of the commissioners, these are some changes that elevate the design standards and beautify the corridor. One request is to prohibit pole-mounted signs and instead require all freestanding signs to be monument signs. One regarding fencing, the plan prohibits chain link and razor wire along cours, but we said, well, the commissioners proposed we should extend that prohibition to protect the neighborhood. We should prohibit chain link and razor wire along any road or access easement and also adjacent to any residential uses, including multifamily. So again, just elevating the design standards of the corridor. We also have a request to modify the lighting standards. It says comply with dark sky ordinances, but we want to make it explicit. That should be the Dark Sky Act, the state act regarding night sky regulations. The plan as currently drafted states that lighting should be capped at 26 feet. That was based on the existing entitlements of the Las Estancias Community Activity Center. Based on input from the commissioners, we are going to maintain that entitlement for Las Estancias, but everywhere else reduce it to 16 feet to promote more pedestrian scale and less glare and more night sky compliance. Okay, 2 additional recommendations from staff. This was not from commissioners. These are ones that we propose to bring the regulations more in alignment with our zoning code. We don't have a lot of multiple dwellings on one parcel in the zoning code in the county, and so when we're introducing multifamily in the corridor, we want to make sure that it follows our standard zoning code and building code, and that has a 10-foot setback from any other building. Pretty standard, but just want to make that explicit. Also clarifying that accessory structures need to comply with their zoning code. Again, very minor clarifications, but these are conditions that would need to be approved by the commission. Okay, and that was the easy part. Now we're going to turn things over to Elvira to talk about some of the more weighty stuff.
Okay, thank you, Mino. Commissioners, we are going to shift, still talking about modifications to be contemplated. These are a little bit more complex because we're going to consider, what will be considered here are the options that commissioners are contemplating or have proposed. And before we get started on that conversation, I'm going to first talk about the housing options content of the plan, and keeping in mind that the plan is a commercial corridor that is proposing a mixed-use zone an activities center zone and a corridor zone. And as a mixed use, it would allow for a whole menu of commercial land uses, as Mr. Savoca reported, based on the county's C1 neighborhood commercial zone, plus some select uses from higher commercial to allow for workforce type land uses. The reason we're focusing on the housing is because, again, in deference to the content that was discussed at the last February 10th public hearing, this is kind of an area where we needed more time, and we met with you all to discuss. So to get us started on the, all on the same kind of playing field, regarding housing concepts, this graphic is showing the continuum of housing types in our communities, starting with the lowest density to the left, single-family homes. That's one house on one lot, followed by secondary dwellings. That's still primarily a single-family home model, except allowing for a little casita. That's what a secondary dwelling is. In the city, those are called ADUs. That is permissive in the county in our general zoning. After that, we start moving into this kind of broader category that we call multifamily housing. When you hear that, that's what we're talking about, something beyond just the single-family concept. And in the county, we have this definition in our code called multiple single-family dwellings, and that's where you have a legal lot and you can have more than one house. It can be 2 homes on one lot, 3 homes. It's just a multitude of single-family dwellings on one lot. Moving on to the duplex, that's where you have 2 dwellings adjoined by the same wall. It's 2 dwellings under one structure. The townhouse is defined in our zoning code as, again, dwellings adjoined by the same wall, and technically the code in the county would allow up to 8 dwellings attached. And the unique part in the county is that each townhome must be on its own lot. That's according to our code. And then the last kind of category is apartments. There's really no, unless you're talking, there's a density regulation, there's really not a set number of units. I will go back to the list. So we talked about single-family dwellings, multiple single-family dwellings on one lot. Duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes are probably most related to this scale. Just a side note, in the county, we don't have a definition for triplex or fourplex, but that could be considered in this plan. Again, this plan is innovative in expanding housing beyond what our standard zoning code does. And so I think we've covered all those terms. So let's move on. The other concept that's important for us to review as we get into the options is this concept about permissive uses and conditional uses. This is a concept that exists in our zoning code as well as many zoning codes across the nation. When you have a zone, there are listed permissive uses. That means that a property owner can expect that they're entitled to build according to those listed uses. So, and what they will need to do though, if there isn't a structure on the site, is go pull a building permit. So of course you always are required to pull a building permit, but you're entitled. You don't need to go through special zoning, any kind of zoning process. With a conditional use, and you see we've used the red light, yellow light concept here to kind of help out. The yellow means cautious. So those are anticipated listed uses in a zone. However, what you need is to go through a zoning process. There's a public hearing associated with that, and that's our process here in the county. And those cases are heard by our zoning administrator, and what they're looking at primarily is to make sure that that use is not creating harm for adjoining neighbors, that there's no negative traffic impacts, that traffic is mitigated through the project. Is the parcel adequate in size for the use, the conditional use that's being requested, that the character of the neighborhood is being respected. So you're looking at these on a case by case, but they are anticipated uses. And again, similar to permissive, if a property owner succeeds with the conditional use zoning request, they can then pull a building permit. Okay, so let's talk about the housing options that have been discussed. We began looking at this at the last hearing. Since the last February 10th hearing, staff did meet with individual commissioners who were interested in these topics to understand what they would like to propose or contemplate at this hearing. And just to say that these options have been reported to the commission and to the public. And so what this white box shows is actually the concept in the plan, and then I'm going to take you through what these options are. So the first kind of theme here is regarding housing types, and I just kind of went through the different options that you can keep in mind as we talk about the options. So the first option one, a commissioner proposed that all multifamily remain permissive, and that actually is consistent with the plan proposal. If you look at, sorry, I didn't talk about what's in the white box, but the plan talks about allowing multifamily developments such as duplexes, apartments, townhomes, et cetera, really anything multifamily as permissive in the two proposed zones. That would be in the activity center and the corridor zoning. So that is an innovation of this plan. In our current zoning code, in commercial zones in C1, C2, residential apartment is allowed, which is the multifamily category, as conditional. This plan is innovative in that it is proposing to allow those housing types as permissive. And so we did hear one proposal from the commission in alignment with the plan, which is to leave the multifamily options as permissive. Option 2 looks at allowing all multifamily with a conditional use permit. So that would be deviating from what the plan, I was wanting to hold a copy of the plan just to make it really clear what the plan is proposing and what the CPC recommended. So this would be now allowing for multifamily, but as with through a conditional use permit. That's through a zoning process with a public hearing. The third option is to allow duplexes with secondary dwellings as permissive. So allowing remember the two dwellings adjoined and also a secondary dwelling as permissive, and all the other remaining housing types, multifamily housing, as conditional. So I'm going to move on, and of course, questions at the end or for the sake of time. The next kind of thematic topic with regards to housing is regarding the density. This was, again, an issue that's been contemplated in previous hearings. The plan is proposing, again, multifamily housing as permissive with densities up to 12 dwellings per acre in the corridor zoning, those lands that are eligible for corridor zoning, and 25 dwellings per acre in the activity centers, where we're wanting to concentrate more of the intensity. And with a conditional use, the plan proposes to double those so that the corridor zoning would be 25, or roughly double, a little more than double, 25 dwellings per acre in the corridor zoning and 50 dwellings per acre in the activity centers, again, through a conditional use permit process. That would be zoning review with a public hearing. Now let's take a look at the commissioner introduced options. Option 1 would be to limit the dwellings per acre to 9 dwellings per acre. And I will say, just to add, and I think where did that number come from? I believe that is in deference to the Southwest Area Plan that already has policies along this particular geography, along this corridor that we're looking at, to specifically promote 9 dwellings per acre with additional planning efforts. And so there is a proposal to limit from what the plan is proposing down to 9 dwellings per acre. There was a second option that was proposed, which is to limit the densities to 12 dwellings per acre in the Sage and Arenal activity centers, and we do have the maps showing here. I can go back to them. The Sage and Arenal are the two neighborhood activity centers along the northern segment of the corridor and closest to the city of Albuquerque, again, where, of course, there's a more urban development form. And as you move south towards the more, southern end of the corridor, the dwellings would be limited to the 9 dwellings per acre. So that would be for the Blake and Las Estancias activity centers. So those are the two kind of themes around housing. It's about housing types, whether they're allowed permissively, conditionally, and what types, and the densities. So I'm going to move on to the next kind of thematic topic here, which is around building height. And just to kind of take a step back, we've been talking housing. Building height relates to both the residential and commercial land uses. Okay, so the discussion here would be limiting of the proposed mixed use, which again, the mixed uses, can I finish getting to the end and I'll try to be quick. These are complex. So this again would apply to the mixed uses, both residential and commercial. There were 4 options that emerged from our meetings with commissioners. We gave them names just so that we can talk about them. I'm going to explain them in the subsequent slides. They're a little bit complex. The first one is called 45-degree angle rule. Option 2, calling it the existing zoning reference. Option 3, we contemplated a height design overlay zone. And then lastly, we're going to call the three-story, 2-story option. And I just want to say that Las Estancias is a community activity center along the corridor that staff is wanting to highlight as needing to be treated differently because it already has significant entitlements through its special use. It's developing as a shopping center. And so whatever we do, we want to make sure that staff wants to illuminate that we strongly believe that it should keep its 45-degree angle rule. So let me talk about that rule. The 45-degree angle rule is a height limit that already exists in our standard zoning code. In fact, any commercial or even light industrial properties along the corridor today would enjoy this height limitation. And this graphic basically explains it. What it is that you draw a 45-degree angle relative to a residential zone, and here to the left would be the commercial property. You would be allowed to build anywhere as long as you do not exceed that line, that 45-degree angle line. I will say that most properties are not using this. They're not utilizing this 45-degree angle rule for various reasons, but it is there, and they do have that existing entitlement. Our plan, the South Corps Corridor Plan, actually proposes to limit the height to 4 stories in activity centers and 3 stories in the corridor. So we would argue that the plan is more limiting than our current standard zoning code. And again, our current, this 45-degree angle rule is in deference to the existing standard commercial zones of the county. Option 2 is looking at, and this concept emerged at the last public hearing. We're calling it the existing zoning reference. It's an elegant idea because we did talk about keeping people's current entitlements, and it would look at recognizing the existing residential zones shown in green and the existing commercial zones shown in red, and with any changes to their zoning, to the sector plan zoning, they would be limited to the heights reflecting their point of origin. So even if they went from residential to commercial, they would then be limited to residential height limit. I will say it's an elegant idea in terms of wanting to protect property rights. Very complicated. We have vetted it amongst our staff. We've looked at it critically. We've mapped it. We think that would be very difficult to implement when you look at the continuum of professionals who touch regulation, the public. We think it's very complicated and less accessible. The third option we're calling the height design overlay. It's a close cousin to option 2. We looked at, okay, well, what if we looked at heights within the activity centers, which again, as a reminder, anybody who's new to this, the activity centers are the orange patches, and looking at one parcel adjacent and limiting the heights for those parcels that are kind of outlined in yellow to a 3-story limit, and everything outside of that to a 2-story limit. And I do want to remind you the 2-story limit comes from our residential standards in our code. Residential properties are limited to 26 feet or 2 stories. So this is also pretty complicated, and it would leave some properties within the activities center zone with 3-story limits and others within the activity center at 2 stories. So still complicated and not achieving that efficient, accessible standard that we like. And so that brings us to the last option, which we call the 3-story, 2-story. And it's quite simple. Properties in the activity center would be limited to 3 stories, and properties outside to 2 stories, whether you're corridor or anything, if you're in the in the corridor zoning. And so we believe this is, the framing or the structure of this is most similar to what is in the proposed sector plan. For its simplicity, we support that with, again, the exception to the Las Estancias Activity Center, allowing it to follow the 45-degree rule, which, by the way, is built into the sector plan. We always treated it separately because it has significant property entitlements. And so that concludes the presentation. We talked about map modifications, just reporting to you all of those changes to date with a couple of new ones since the last public hearing. Zoning and design standards, some of them general with regards to contractors' yard signage, fencing, lighting, setbacks. Those are what we consider the general ones. There's not a lot of options there. It's either you support that, and remember those have stars because they need to be included into the official findings and conditions if you proceed with those. They have not yet been included in those. And then lastly, the areas that, the topics that have options around housing type, housing density, and building height. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Manager Elvira Lopez. So we just finished staff presentation and I have public input as the next, but I also see a star. So are we supposed to deliberate right now or public comment?
Madam Chair, I think we can go into public hearing and then you can go into deliberation.
Thank you. We are moving into public hearing. I believe we have people to sign up to speak. Each person will have 1 minute. You will be alerted about your remaining time. When your name is called, please, make your way to the podium if you're speaking in person. Before making your statement, please state your name for the record to maintain order and decorum, and in the spirit of professionalism and respect for everyone present, speakers must adhere to the time limit. If the conduct of the presenter violates the rules, they may be subject to removal. Javier, please announce the names of speakers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon, we have a total of 3 speakers. Please line up at the podium when your name is called and when it is your turn to speak. Please state your name for the record. We will start with Jerry Noble, followed by Marcia Fernandez, followed by Peter Eschman.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jerry Noble, and I'm representing the Blake Road Neighborhood Association. Commission meeting discussions on the sector plan have focused on zoning, housing density and heights, transportation safety, and lighting aspects of the plan. These issues are fundamental to the South Valley's sense of place and how we honor culture. These places are where we live, where we shop, where we work, and where we play. Our community will be shaped by what is decided in the sector plan. The proposed Blake Road Activity Center must respect the character of adjacent neighborhoods. Only by adopting the 9 density unit rural standard and minimizing the height limits will the sector plan follow the higher ranking Southwest area plan. Height is another aspect of the association concerns. Actually, the association in its 2 meetings favored a 2-story limit. For us, the elephant in the room.
Sorry, please finish up.
Okay. Elephant in the room is now the vacant Bernalillo Motors property at the corner of Blake and Coors. The steep cliff at the east side of the property exacerbates the height of any building constructed there.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
The issues raised in the South Coors sector plan are complex. The outcome will shape our community and neighborhood over the long term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia Fernandez, followed by Peter Eschman.
May I have Marcia's time? I don't know if the projector works or not, but if possible, I'd like to show that.
It's showing up.
What I have on the iPad. My name is Peter Eschman. I'm president of the Conita Real Neighborhood Association, acting president of South Valley Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. I've lived in the South Valley for over 50 years. I primarily want to call your attention to some of the text that is in the Isleta Boulevard Sector Plan. And it seems as though this plan was written without much regard to what's already in a nearby corridor plan. And notably, some of the stuff that's missing would be the diagrams that I have shown on my iPad here, which are from page 30 of the Isleta Boulevard Sector Plan, clearly indicating which light fixtures are appropriate and which ones are not. When I spoke to you at the last meeting, I raised concerns about a property that had been recently changed to a activity center. It turns out those fixtures are in violation of the very plan that should affect that property. So that's all I have to say. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for that information, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes our public comment.
Thank you. And I want to take a quick business order that I missed. I would like to ask Madam Clerk, please issue a resolution number for this item.
Yes, Madam Chair. For item 5A, AR 2026-27.
And for item B.
Item 5B is AR 2026-28.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, we have heard public input, and we are now going to move back to staff for closing comment.
Madam Chair, we have no additional comments, but are available to answer questions.
Thank you. Okay, if we can bring back up that little starred slide to help guide me. And so, yes, that commission, we are up for deliberation around this. Commissioner Vice Chair Baca, would you like to lead us?
Thank you. If I may, Madam Chair, I do have an opening statement, if you will, written out that I'd like to just pass along to everybody. And I made copies available for the public, the people that I know that are here from the South. I'm not sure if everybody got one. If anybody didn't get one, Micah has some additional ones that she can distribute, and I have distributed them to staff this morning. There's several different versions of it that I've sent for the last couple of days. And first of all, I want to say I thank staff for all their work and their patience in working with me on this, and the community as well. The number of meetings we had, the number of briefings we've had, and trying to explain to me this really complicated subject. And I'm almost there, but I'm probably not completely there. But I certainly appreciate that. But my position is not my position. My position is based on my as I say to my document here, by conversations with schools. I met with 5 schools at one time. I have a map showing the different schools that I met with or that are in this area. Businesses, business communities. We had a meeting with several commercial contractors in this area. Neighborhood associations, you heard from Ms. Noble from the Blake Association, and others also participated in discussion with me. The steering committee members, I think I called every single one, and I think I spoke to all but perhaps one of them. Area residents, people that just simply called me or emailed me. And also, and perhaps more importantly, that current position I have is, I think, also supported by the very survey results that was obtained through this process. And I referenced some page numbers from the plan where that is the case. And I think the first item is that the plan has stated on many occasions, locations, I mentioned about half a dozen, there are others, that it was the purpose is to promote strong neighborhood identity through design that respects community character, rural character, open spaces, and historic preservation. I'm sure I missed about 2/3 of the references in the plan to that particular type of statement. The one below that I actually quoted, I think, is probably the best description of that the residents value. Talking about South Valley residents value the valley's rural character, open space, and sense of community, expressing concerns about increasing urbanization and the potential for large-scale developments to disrupt the area's aesthetics and quality of life. That's page 16 from the plan. Another part of my approach is to not increase housing density along cores. I note that there are currently no apartment complexes in the area, and currently the current zoning, which is R2, does not allow for that, does not provide for that. And I'm going to address housing in a second. There is a clear prioritization in the plan of safety. Safety is an urgent concern, as noted on those pages that I quoted in my script here. As we know, there also is the South Coast Safety Corridor project that's underway and is partially funded, and several $1 million have already spent to design and plan that. That is an absolute priority for the community residents. And also to promote economic development. Just as I'm not against housing, I'm going to explain that in a second. I'm not against commercial development, but it should be in the proper place. I would argue, based on my conversations with all these various entities, including the contractors that have businesses along cores, that this area should encourage commercial businesses, primarily construction businesses, because there's a huge economic need for that in our community, and that is a great area for it, given the other similar businesses and the land that's available. And number 5, I wanted to, and I read this plan probably 3 times in the last 3 days, and I keep adding different things. There's a specific reference that from the community that they support the preference for lower rise building. Page 21 of the plan states that. That was from a survey of residents. So getting to housing, I am not against housing, not against affordable housing. And I went back and I keep mentioning that there are 380 or 400 housing units being built as we speak. I was wrong. It's more like 1,000. And I listed them. The 3 different apartment complexes that have built in the last few years, one of which is under construction as we speak. Townhomes. There's a 50-unit townhome development that is in place as we speak. That's the Diamond Mesa. D.R. Horton is working on a subdivision. I had no idea. We just got that information today. Starter homes in the range of about 300,000 plus. I know that's quote unquote starter for these days, right? That is the starter for these days. 400 units are being built west of this area. Also, I just learned this past week. There was a true affordable housing complex being developed just west of this area, a manufactured home community that was in an area that was previously in the plan and has just been asked to be removed. That is 107 units. That is a true affordable housing complex in my humble opinion, in an appropriate location, which is off of course, west of course. You add all that up and they have 1,000 units of housing or more. In regards to what I like about the plan, I appreciate the level of community engagement. I don't know how many meetings I've gone to, neighborhood association meeting where staff went there and stayed there past 8 o'clock, sometimes past 9 o'clock. I appreciate the work of staff and their contractors in engaging with the community. Design overlay. You know, I don't have any objection. I don't have anything to add. I'm not an expert in this area. It makes sense to me, the landscaping requirements, the buffering. I'm not in a position to argue, to debate that. They seem to make sense to improve the overall aesthetic look of the area. The plan does prohibit single-family residence. That is part of the plan. And I actually support that. And the reason I support that is because Coors, as it stands, is a dangerous road. It's simply a dangerous road. And to encourage or allow another SRFR in that area, I think is not prudent. But that same argument, I think, applies to have other residential dwellings, whether it be townhomes, triplexes, fourplexes, or apartments. So I have listed a group of amendments, and rather than continue to editorialize, I just simply went through the plan, and I appreciate all the documents you have prepared and presented to me that are very well written and very precise. It was easier for me simply to go through the plan as it is written and identify proposed amendments from my perspective. And Madam Chair, I would just like to ask you how you would wish to proceed. And it is at the end of this document here.
I do. How I wish to proceed.
Yes, with the amendments, yes, ma'am.
Well, and I just want to make sure you're saying amendments to the South Coors Boulevard Sector Development Plan.
That is correct.
Okay. I am not sure. I thought in our continuance that I think we can definitely listen to your amendments. Let's jump in. you want to go one by one.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Barber Baca.
I just actually have a question on these handouts that you gave us. So, I mean, because there are options, right, in these attachments. So you have attachment 16 and attachment 15. So these options, these colored options are like mutually exclusive, right? I mean, you can't do all of them. I mean, so is there a list of findings that Commissioner Frank Baca is proposing changes to, or is it new? I just want to be the lay of the land here on what we are.
And I guess, thank you, Commissioner Oliva.
Okay, so he's proposing amendments on the back of.
That are separate.
Madam Chair,
what's already
Commissioners,
included.
Yeah.
we are prepared
Elvie,
with.
if I might, just, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are, so with respect to Commissioner Frank Baca's amendments, none of those are included in the documents that staff prepared or uploaded to MinuteTrack. But we are able to, the Commissioner's Office was kind enough to share a Word document. If the board agrees to those, we would be able to incorporate those into new findings and conditions as approved by the board. The findings and conditions sets that you all have in front of you that went into MinuteTrack, those captured the conversations with individual commissioners from the prior two hearings and comprehensively package those so that you can see them in totality. I believe that Commissioner Olivas recommended that we do that, and so that is what is in front of you today. We are ready to incorporate any of those changes that the board agrees to as a whole.
Okay, and I just want to make sure for parliamentary procedure's sake, we've had this discussion and even a briefing on how to proceed, but I'm not quite sure. I want to make sure I get it right. So if we have these in MinuteTrack, when you say that, it means that they've been published, the public has been able to see them. And when we have new amendments, what is would that delay the vote on this if we were to make additional amendments now that have not been published publicly?
Madam Chair, no, any commissioner can make an amendment on the floor that has not been made available in the published document. We were proactive in trying to publish all the information that we had, but that is always the opportunity for the commissioners.
Thank you. Triple checking. Okay, so I guess we have both, I think it might be, if this is a hard one, it might be advantageous to go through and pick some of these, but I don't know if they contradict with what Vice Chair Baca is also proposing.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
I think we need to just start working through these. Because all of them.
All of them.
Because they're all, I think they're all merit consideration, and just a point of order, we have 30 minutes.
Yeah, and, okay, well, I think I would like to proceed with going through the document and attachments that have been provided for us that include all of the individual conversations with commissioners. And we can work through that. And then I guess if any of the ones that, maybe Commissioner Vice Chair Baca, you can note if they are not in alignment with something we're about to vote on.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Lucas.
I guess perhaps maybe in that original presentation that you guys did, I wouldn't call it a consent agenda, but the easy stuff, as you said it, maybe we could look at that as sort of one larger amendment, because I don't know that there's a lot of conflict there. So
okay.
I would make a motion to adopt.
Easy stuff.
I don't want to say it like that, but let's see if you can find it.
Yes, we can go through those. How about I list them and then you can discuss or deliberate or propose. The first topic is the, oops.
Well, could you just put up, you had a slide that had a summary of all of them?
I did,
and I think
at
we
the
could just
end.
deal with that as
Why don't we
one
do
fell
that?
swoop.
Okay.
The star.
So we did put them at the end as listed to simplify. Here we go. There they are. That,
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we could just I would make a motion to adopt the general standards changes.
as listed here.
The 2-1 general standards.
Number 2.
I second that.
2-1.
Any discussion? Oh, I meant to mention that Commissioner Benson has been excused. He had to leave. Okay, no discussion, Madam.
I'm not sure, Madam Chair. So the motion is on this slide before us, number 2, zoning and design standards.
Just
general standards of the contractor's yard, signage, fencing, lighting, and setbacks. Solomon?
Yes. Yes, that's my motion.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barba Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, if I could also remind you that we did have at least, it was one map amendment since the last February hearing, and so that was in regards to a property owner wanting to be removed from Arenal. And the Blake reduction in the activity center, we've already incorporated that into our staff recommended findings, but the property owner request has not. So if we could have you all contemplate that.
Thank you, and that is number 1, map modification?
Correct.
I make a motion for those map modifications. I think that's really important.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the, or I guess all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, number 1 also passes. Okay, if we get into housing type options. There we go.
Housing type options, there you go.
Yes. So housing type options is introduced by commissioners. We have option 1, a multifamily is permissive. Option 2 would require a conditional use permit, and option 3 is permissive. All else conditional. Deliberation, yes? Go ahead, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
My question is, again, the process. So in your little white box, that is highlighted would come out if we choose one of these options. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, that is the idea. It would be to modify the concept in the plan, and even that's a report. It's not the explicit text. We understand we're reporting. If we wanted to go to the explicit text, we would go into that red line. But yes, if you decide on one of these options, we will make sure that the plan is consistent with that option that you're choosing. We will modify the zoning text and anywhere in the plan that needs to be in alignment with the selected option.
Thank you. Any other discussion about these options before us? Is there a preference? Anybody want to make a motion or
Madam
further
Chair?
discussion? Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
So I would just point out that option 1 is actually, we don't have to take any action to
Correct.
keep option 1. And so really it's the question, the question is status quo, option 2 or option 3?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So my preference is actually just to stay where we're at. But if there's a desire to change, I think we should go to option 3, which is much more of a hybrid, encouraging some gentle density here with duplexes and ADUs, sort of allowing some very small incremental density, and other larger developments conditional. But at this point, I'm not going to make a motion to do that.
Thank you. I want to understand greater, I guess. Oh, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
No, go ahead.
I want to understand greater, Vice Chair Baca. So when you in your sort of statement, you talked about removing, okay, so where do you land in these hopes and opportunities for your community? And when we're talking about housing, and in your statement, you talked about, not to allow increase in commercial business, but not in housing, and I heard you greatly about the safety along cores. Does that extend to beyond just along cores? And I guess promoting commercial business, and I know you say primary construction, but there isn't a way, I believe, unless there's a way to truly prioritize construction. I mean, that might mean that an asphalt company comes in or another sort of destructive commercial company, I guess. So I guess I'm just interested in your piece there to prioritize commercial businesses over housing.
Thank you, Madam Chair, if I may. Again, I see, again, this is a vision framed by discussion with many folks, is that if we were going to design this in a way that meets the needs of the community that live there or live in that area and the community as a whole, quite frankly, we wouldn't have any housing at all. We would limit it to a commercial zone where you would have commercial activity, primarily, hopefully, construction or whatever, there's other types of businesses there. Most of them are currently construction. So I think I would actually go so far as that, if they're saying that, if there's not an appetite to do that, for whatever personal philosophical reason the person has on this dais, I would prefer option 2, that would require a conditional permit because it simply allows a process to be in place. It would not prohibit it, but it would make sure that there were whatever particular guidelines that are being adhered to, and it just raises an awareness is that you are building a house in this area that I would hopefully and ultimately like to see develop into a commercial zone. So first choice would be to not, which is why I said remove the housing as a goal in that area. But again, I understand not everybody agrees with that, and if you don't agree with that, that's fine. I would go with number 2, simply for having a process and a step to go through before housing is allowed in the area.
Yes, Commissioner Barbara Baca, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So the option 3 that allows duplexes and secondary dwellings, Commissioner Baca, I think that we're doing that in other places in the South Valley that has been embraced by constituents of the South Valley. Casitas behind houses on large lots. So I think, I really, and the pictures that Elvira showed us at the beginning, showing those duplexes and showing those alternative dwelling units, to me, fits with what we have in the South Valley. And so it does really limit more, option 3 does, because all else, multifamily, that's what I heard from our public dialogue. They don't want 3-story apartment buildings fronting on Coors. And I strongly, I heard that. And I think that this limits that. This does not allow that. That this would require that conditional use and that process to go forward. But it still allows the flexibility in the more dense areas for duplexes, which I think have a place in a developing corridor. So that's the point I wanted to make to you.
Do we have a motion? I guess my one bit of discussion would be that I'd like to say that okay, I guess I have one more other question. So is this only, does this change is not only to the Coors facing roads, right? It's for the whole activity centers that expend beyond just Coors?
Madam Chair, the options in front of you would affect the entire plan area. So for instance, if you selected option 2 in both the activity center and the corridor zone, multifamily would require a conditional use approval.
Okay.
And Madam Chair and Director Ham, if I could further elaborate, the boundaries do include lands that are not eligible for the zoning, but these proposed modifications would impact lands that would either have the activity center zoning, which again, those lands would be have experienced a change in zoning with adoption of the plan. And it would apply to lands that have the corridor zoning. And we've reported on this many times before. Those are optional zones, and what that means is property owners are eligible to apply for a zone change for the corridor zone. So that's what we're discussing, that these regulations would then apply to the sector plan zoning, whether activity center or corridor zoning.
Thank you. Commissioner Barbara Baca.
And again, I think that speaks to why, in those activity centers, we want to allow for more development and walkability and all of that kind of thing that this plan is about. We have a changing, area, and some of the design items that we already approved are going to help protect the look and that kind of thing. But this does recommend, or allows, I guess, right, more density at those activity centers, which is the purpose of our corridors and activity center planning that we've done in previous years. So that's another one I think that speaks to number 3 being a good, to try it out and see how these activity centers develop, I think.
Thank you. Commissioner Barbara Baca. Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adopt option 3.
I second that. Any conversation? I just wanted to add a point that I think duplexes, and I think this is still staying with, I second. Any other further discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would say to my colleague, that Commissioner Baca, that I think that it follows what your position is still. And so I think that I'm going to support that. I think.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, to the next, housing density options. Okay. Looks like we're up for discussion. Commissioner Baca, you care to lead us, Vice Chair?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. In this case, I will say I do strongly support and would move option 1. I think that, because it gets complicated when you start talking about the height and other things. That was the one that you noticed on my little statement here that I left blank, because I still wasn't sure exactly what it was the right thing to do, and I really had a lot of angst over this and trying to make sure we do the right thing that serves the interests of the community and does not have some unintended consequences that might harm the community. I've really taken that seriously. I've actually lost a lot of sleep over that over the last couple of months that we've been thinking about that. But I think that having the 9 dwellings per acre limitation adds that layer of protection. I still, as been mentioned over the course of the last few months, there are no apartments in that corridor right now. There are no apartments. There are 0. And for good reason. It's not a good place for an apartment. And given the status of that road, the safety concerns, one of the most dangerous roads in the entire country, I've been told, or certainly in the state, and it goes up and down in that ranking. And so placing that limitation of density, I think, will sort of address some of the other issues and perhaps encourage and move use of the property to what I think, quite frankly, just based on my meetings and discussions, is a higher and better use, which is more of commercial activity, since there is so much. And I didn't even mention all the vacant lots west of Coors that are currently zoned for and for sale to have residential property. So I would strongly urge and move adoption of option 1, maximum density of 9 dwellings per acre.
I'll second.
Okay, it has a motion and a second, and we have discussion. Yes, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Again, I'd like Elvira to restate, so that is, which is highlighted, which was, is in the current option of your plan now. This reduces that quite substantially. Both of these options reduce
Madam
it
Chair
quite substantially.
Barboa, Commissioner Barbara Baca, that is correct. Again, the plan proposes 12 dwellings per acre in the corridor, tan-colored eligible parcels, opt-in parcels. and 25 permissively in the orange patches at the intersections activity centers permissively, and doubling that with a conditional. So option one would be to limit the densities across the board, whether you're in the activity center or in the opt-in corridor zoning, to 9 dwellings per acre. That's what option one would do.
So we're actually decreasing what's in the current plan.
That is correct.
In the
The current proposal.
Yeah.
Oh, the current proposal. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
So I would strongly advocate for option two, which is still a reduction. And I know we're on a motion for option one. I'm not going to be able to support it. I just don't think that we can talk the game of, you know, we care about housing. We know that we have this challenge. We want to make housing more affordable and more abundant. But we also at the same time want to have, you know, very restrictive zoning that limits the ability to develop more housing. And I think, again, the 9 dwellings in the corridor makes sense. So that's consistent with option one. So, you know, the option two is sort of a hybrid, keeping that as the base, but then pushing that just a little bit in those two, only 2 of those centers, and there's 4, right? We're generally not talking about Las Estancias. It removes the Blake Center because we heard from the community that the Blake Center was really not ideal for that kind of density. And so I think that option very incrementally pushes the limit here, making us consistent with what we're telling our state legislators, our governor, our community, that we are, you know, Bernco builds. We're moving on housing, and we are trying to be pushing the limits here. And so I just think that option two does, well, frankly, the current plan does that to the maximum extent. Option two is still a reduction, but it is less so. And so I think that we ought to try that. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to comment that I have felt, along this conversation, including with the comprehensive master plan, with this sector plan, that, right, I always want to remind us about transportation and what we've learned about bus access, public transportation, that unless we have enough population, we can't really have the justification to push for transit, right? And I think sensibly, we have moved to say, no, we're not gonna just say everywhere gets to do it, but these little activity centers that already have a hub, then if we are able to say that and control growth, because we know there is movement, there's new development, and I hear you, and I so appreciate how you, this document that really shares how much development is already happening of housing, and as well as your previous conversations about how much we have had zero growth. I think that is so important, and I don't think we need to base our efforts. I think I've heard recently, because of your conversations, about a no-growth economic development. How do we think about containing and thinking of growth and quality of life in a no-growth era, in a no-growth position? I hate the opportunity to take away from what people have already had opportunity for. And as someone that, a single mom of 2 growing up, I had, when I used to look for places to live, I would always hope to be able to live in the South Valley, but there wasn't really any opportunity because there wasn't any places that were affordable, apartments, or places that someone who couldn't own a home, or like myself as a single mama too, could decide I want to live in the South Valley. And I think that's also a hard reality, that we're pushing out maybe young families opportunities to be able to live in the district. And so I guess I would have probably even preferred to keep just 12 all the way. I think the 25 per acre is not a good deal for the South Valley, but I would have probably even kept a 12 and 12 for everywhere. But I think, I also think option 2 at least keeps people, oh no, these are proposals. So currently, I guess that's my question. Currently, what is the density per acre?
Madam Chair, The Southwest Area Plan recommends 9 dwelling units per acre in residential area 5, which this corridor falls within. So the staff proposed plan would have upped that significantly. We think there's headroom in that residential area, so this wouldn't have been in conflict with the Southwest Area Plan. Option 1 goes to 9, and then 2 goes to 12 in 2 activity centers and 9 everywhere else.
Okay. Well, we have a motion. Any further discussion? Okay, you don't want to close this out or anything?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I hear what both you and Commissioner Olivas are saying, and again, I'm one vote here, and, I think that not moving it up to 2550 is significant, I get it. I still urge 9, and the reason is because the concerns I articulated earlier regarding traffic, congestion during the day, speeding at night, and because of the fact that we have a safety plan project in place, at some point in time, it may be in fact advisable. I've lived there all my entire life, and I think it would welcome to have you move into the South Valley. I would strongly encourage you not to move onto course for your own personal health and safety, quite frankly. I don't think that would be advisable for anybody that has kids or grandkids to do that. And so, to me, setting the density at 9 hopefully nudges it over to what I think could be an awesome commercial zone. And I've talked before about Bridge Boulevard and how beautiful it has become, with the improvements that it's made, and allow that to be a commercial zone. It should be a commercial zone. There are still houses on Bridge that have been there forever. And I get it. On Osleta, the same thing. I think this area, just the way it's built as a corridor for transportation, already so intense use with contractors' yards. I just think doing anything to encourage housing at this time until this additional investment is made in safety is just not advisable, in my humble opinion. But whatever the will of the commission is, but I still stand by option 1.
Thank you, Vice Chair Baca. All in favor of the motion in front of us, please say aye.
For option 1.
For option 1.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. You passed on a 3-1 vote. Okay, next option. Building heights.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Vice Commissioner Baca.
Looking at the time, I'm going to cut to the chase and make a motion for option 4, the 3-story, 2-story version, which, as I understand it, on a corridor, it's a 2-story limit on height, and in the activity centers, it goes up to the 3-story.
You got it, Madam Chair. Madam Chair Barboa, Commissioner Baca, that is correct. In the activity centers, 3, corridors 2.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, if I may, this is one that I've been very, very conflicted about, and I've consulted with, Ms. Noble, who is the president of the neighborhood. I've attended several meetings, as another person from that area walked in. I've spoken to her about it on the phone, and I have been conflicted about it. I would support option 2, which is actually came to my attention, quite frankly, by the comments of Commissioner Barbour at the last meeting. And I think that it is. I understand that it would be complicated, but I have full faith in our staff being able to address that and handle that and figure that out and advise property owners appropriately. And again, I'm conflicted about it. I'm going to be honest with it. I am been conflicted about it because I don't want to unintentionally allow for something that allows for greater than 3 stories. And I get that. And I put that out in an email to various people. What are your thoughts about that back? And I get that. I think option 2 is going to allow for that potential in some places, but also will set a limit in other places. And if I may ask, to have that threshed out a little bit more, just so, if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
to fully go over the
Are you, Madam Chair, Commissioner, can you clarify your question? Are you
Yeah.
wanting to understand what option 2 means?
Correct.
Oh, yes, here it is. I know we breezed through these. Option 2 is giving deference or taking a look at the existing zoning and letting that be the guide for any future zoning on a particular parcel when they have the new sector plan zoning. And the idea is to limit the existing residential zones, whether they change zoning to commercial, the mixed use, to 2 stories. And the properties that have commercial today would follow the 45-degree angle plane rule, which is what is the existing entitlements in commercial zones in the county. And so just again, to remind you, 45-degree angle plane is the angle, and there's no technical limit to the number of stories. It depends on your site.
It could go higher.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, for me.
Yes.
And it could go higher. I understand, and that's why I've been so conflicted about it. But I think the way it was proposed in regards to commercial versus residential, I think, quite frankly, if it was going to be higher, I think people would rather see it in a commercial setting than a residential setting. So I think option 2 fits the needs of what I've been hearing the community say. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Just
McCaffrey.
if I might add just a little bit to that, Commissioner Baca, the staff has heard clearly that you value supporting commercial development in this corridor. I just want to point out that this option, if in a scenario where a currently zoned residential property opts into the commercial-oriented zone that the plan offers, it would be limited to residential height requirements, and you could thereby limit its ability to develop commercial uses.
So I'm not sure that I fully understood that, if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
to get you to elaborate.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bach, I'll try and explain that more succinctly. The reference scenario, so if a property is zoned A1 today,
Right.
and it opts into the SC, AC, or SC zone, it would be then limited to the residential building constraints, meaning 2 stories.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that that was clear.
It
that-
would not
that-
provide the opportunity for commercial that might want to go higher than that.
If they opt in.
You would have a property with zoning that allows a multitude of commercial uses, but it would be limited to height of a residential zone property.
Well, I appreciate that clarification.
Any further discussion?
Call the question.
I don't think there is a motion. Oh,
No, option 4.
option 4. Okay. Yes, there is a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Thank you. No, nay. Thank you. We have 3 in favor and 1 in opposition. Do we still have one more to go?
I believe that is it, Commissioners.
Woo.
Whew, we got through it. Madam Chair, Commissioners, and the last order of actions is to decide on the complete findings and conditions. So keeping that in mind, can you bring those up, please? So these motions that have been made would be to add them to findings and conditions for, that would come along with approval of the South Coors Boulevard Sector Development Plan.
Yes. Thank you.
And so-
Yes, do you have something to present?
Madam Chair, we're just reminding you, we've reported those to you. How many findings do we have, Mino, and conditions?
There are 9 findings and quite a few conditions, but they're listed as 3 conditions, but we're going to be adding more conditions.
Right.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, a suggested motion would be to adopt the plan, subject to the findings and conditions proposed by staff, including those approved through motions by the board today.
Correct.
Okay, I would love to just say I motion that, but I also remembered that we have these proposed amendments that Vice Chair Baca did propose. Vice Chair, do you have a motion, or would you like to go through these?
No, I think, thank you, Madam Chair, but I think that incorporates, our discussion incorporates my suggestion. What I was concerned about, however, is conflict in the planning document. So I just wanted the narrative portion of the plan to be consistent with ultimately what we're doing with the density, because to say that, our intent is to maximize density, yet we've reduced it or limited to 9 is in conflict. And you know how lawyers are, they can be kind of creative and difficult at times.
Madam Chair,
use that as an
Commissioners,
angle
we can be
and some of
sure
my best friends are
to,
lawyers, I might ask.
oh, apologies.
Yes, and Manager Lopez.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we can be sure to, with the direction of the commission, to comb through the document to make sure that there's no inconsistencies with the motions and the findings and conditions.
Okay, so would you care to make a motion, Vice Chair Baca, that reflects adopting the plan as amended and?
Can you Madam Chair?
Yes. Can you repeat?
Can we just have the director repeat that?
Yes.
I think we are there.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Baca, and I'm going to add additional for I omitted the adoption of the area plan amendments. So we actually need 2 separate motions. The first would be to adopt the area plan with findings and conditions as suggested by staff. And the second would be to adopt the sector plan with findings and conditions suggested by staff with the additional motions approved by the board today.
Okay. Okay, I move that we adopt the area plan with findings and conditions set forth by staff do I have a second?
I'm not sure.
Or not the area plan.
No, I agree with that, but as also amended further by what the commission has done just now, is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Baca, the motions that you all just went through, it would just be for the sector plan item.
Gotcha, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Gotcha.
Okay.
You're correct.
No, I like the clarity, thank you. Okay, any discussion? Oh, I made a motion, did we get a second? Second, okay. We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval. The second, I move that we adopt the sector plan with the findings and conditions set forth and the amendments made by the board today.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, all in any
Madam Chair.
discussion? Yes.
I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed kind of diving into this, and, we do zoning, but most of it is very case by case, so it was really interesting to work together as a commission and with our staff to really dive in deep and kind of think at a higher level, bigger picture. So just want to appreciate all the hard work that went into this on the staff side and on the commission side. We worked through a lot of really good amendments that the colleagues all here put forward, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments?
Just like to echo that, if I may, Madam Chair. I appreciate everybody's time and patience.
Thank you. Yes, in service to our community. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yay, right at 5:03. Jeez. Okay, so announcement of the next zoning meeting, Tuesday, April 14th, zoning meeting at 3 p.m. in Ken Sanchez Chambers. If there is no other business, this meeting is adjourned. We will be starting our commission meeting in 10 minutes at 5:15.